Hello there. As many of you know, I was born extrasensory. I didn't teach myself to be extrasensory. For this very reason, when people ask me how to be extrasensory, I have no idea what to tell them. It's a little bit like you teaching someone who's colorblind to see the color red. However, this week I was asked so many times how to see auras that I took it as a sign. And I went out of body to meet with some beings whose job it is to help people incarnate. Because I wanted to find out what the difference between people who come in extrasensory and people who don't come in extrasensory is. Because I knew that figuring out this difference would help me to be able to teach people who don't see things that are outside the range of normal human senses to see those things. What you are about to hear in this episode is a result of what I learned. I hope it helps you to see. Now, the first thing that we have to understand is that you don't have to be special or gifted to see auras. Anyone can, in fact, learn how to see them. The aura is essentially a field of subtle, luminous, electromagnetic radiation surrounding a physical thing. The word surround, of course, gets us off track when it comes to understanding auras because in reality, your aura is entirely in and of you. When you are observing the physical body and the aura at the same time, the aura merely appears to surround the body. Really, it's just another dimensional layer of a being, and the body is an overlay upon it. We associate auras with only living things, but in truth, all things which are physical, whether they be living or not, have an aura. Now here's the thing that most people don't understand about auras. People think that you are giving off your aura, when in reality what's more true is that your aura is giving off you. It is the multidimensional aspect of you, which is projecting itself forth physically as the person you see in the mirror every day. An aura simultaneously contains information which it puts off and has a highly sensitive perception of information which it absorbs. The electromagnetic energy field is constantly lending to as well as emanating from your physical body. You could think of it like an electromagnetic form of consciousness that both transmits and receives. Some people with energetic vibrations that are high enough to find resonance with thought forms can interpret them through their physical senses. Most people think that auras are just about colors, but someone like myself can tell you that there's a lot more to auras. Auras can have different shapes, different textures, different sizes, different patterns, different sounds, different hues. They vary greatly in terms of hue and value. The aura colors are perceived because the distribution of light particles versus the wavelength in an electromagnetic field varies greatly and is therefore perceived differently by the human eye. Any or all of these characteristics of an aura can tell a practitioner of energy work what areas need to be focused back into a beneficial resonance. They can tell a nearly complete story of who you are and what led you to being who you are. Your aura will respond to the thoughts you're thinking. When you're thinking a negative thought, for example, and you think it with enough regularity, that thought will then show up in your subtle etheric body, in your aura. It will become a pattern, a texture, and then that will translate into a physical symptom. You could think of your aura as the visible blueprint, mirroring the thoughts that you are thinking and the emotions that you are feeling, as well as the thoughts you have thought and the feelings you have felt, which are leading to your current manifestation in this moment. This includes attitudes, memories, beliefs, experiences, etc. Basically anything this life as well as past lives have caused you to become. The aura contains all colors within it, but when a practitioner who reads auras tells you your aura is blue, what they mean is that blue is the closest color to your skin. This layer of the auric field is in fact the most essential to who you are. It's the most authentic to who you are. It is your energy signature. That color most reflects your manifested being and life intention. A person's primary aura color is usually the most dominant color in their auric field, unless they have had to suppress their authenticity in order to fit into their culture, family, or social group. So why should we learn to see auras? For some people, it's about feeling legitimately spiritual or feeling special. For some people, it's just about how cool it would be to see those kinds of things. Whatever the case may be, we need to be really honest with ourselves about why we want to see auras, both the shadow side and the light side of it. So for those of you who want to see auras, the first thing you need to ask yourself is, why do I want to see auras? If I was to make a case for why it's a good idea for people to learn to see auras, I would say that not only does it make this world a more beautiful and a more colorful place to be, it also enables us to develop true intimacy with other people. In order to see auras, you have to see into other people, literally. Much of the reason why we're in so much pain on this planet is because we don't understand each other. We're playing a massive guessing game with each other. If you're able to see these auric fields, you will be able to understand people better. It allows you to perceive the multidimensional universe and also perceive the effects that you have on other people. Much of the reason that we cannot heal chronic illnesses is because we do not see beyond the physical body. Let your mind ruminate on the implications of a world where people perceive the unified quantum field, perceive the multidimensional aspects of each other, and understand each other completely. For the sake of understanding, we need to start to see this physical dimension that we're currently focused in as a 360-degree panoramic learning hologram that was designed by Source itself for self-actualization. It's a bit like a full experience video game. Now, it's one thing to conceptualize of the idea of love and connection. It's quite another to experience a lover's first kiss. Also, the only way to really comprehend oneness is to become so separated that we are separate physical individuals. But let's understand that the best way to fully learn from this hologram or video game is to forget that anything outside of it exists. This is the difference between watching a movie in a movie theater and temporarily forgetting your own life, and watching a movie in your own house in the middle of the day where there are distractions everywhere so you can't forget your own life. Which experience causes you to feel more? Which experience causes you to care more? I rest my case. In order to fully participate in this learning hologram that is the physical dimension, we have to close our awareness to the other dimensional realities so we can focus fully in the physical dimension. It's the same idea as, in order to really focus on the video game, you have to stop focusing on the room that you're sitting in. Only in this video game called life, we actually become the avatar. That's akin to being able to literally become the character in Grand Theft Auto that is stealing cars and running away from the bad guys. This process of focusing physically begins before conception, and it gradually increases over time. When you first come into this dimension as a baby, your senses have the full capability of perceiving this physical dimension, but they have to learn how to perceive this dimension. That's why when a baby comes into life, things are relatively fuzzy. Not only that, they still see auras and multidimensional realities. But as mom or dad begins to educate them in the physical world by getting them to differentiate what a ball is from what a dog is, as they start learning those words, what they start to do is to ignore the quantum field. In other words, the only reason that you can see this as a pen is because you are ignoring everything around this that is not the pen. This is when we learn to focus on that which is physical by ignoring everything else that is non-physical. In order to see something as a pen, you must stop seeing it as potential energy and instead see it as a static object. The point at which we start to see the world in this way is the point at which most of us stop seeing things that are outside the physical dimension. We become completely invested in the video game. Another way of understanding this is that it's like we are radio antenna, and we tune our dial to only that which is physical, so that we don't receive any other channels that are vibrating at a different frequency than physical. As the frequency of the physical dimension increases, and as our awareness of the multidimensional reality comes back, we begin to tune our dial so that we can receive other radio channels besides the physical, and we learn to see what we learn to ignore. Some people like myself have chosen to come into this life, but to not focus purely physical. I'm like the video game player who, instead of being completely in the game, never lost awareness of the room that I'm sitting in. That was a pre-birth intention. And that pre-birth intention was a point of attraction that began to attract all the conditions necessary to facilitate that particular intention. Things like zodiac arrangement, genetics, the very way that my brain was formed. The funny thing is that from physical perspective, people like myself that are clairvoyant are thought to have a special ability. Whereas from non-physical perspective, people like myself that are clairvoyant are seen to have a special disability. We deactivate a portion of ourselves which is normally activated in order to be able to perceive not just the physical dimension. Disability is not seen as a misfortune, though, from non-physical perspective. In the years to come, science will point to a great many factors that cause people to be extrasensory. In truth, these are all just manifestations of the choice to not close the eyes to other dimensions in order to open the eyes to the physical dimension. Of course, the full story about why we collectively felt the need to close our eyes to other dimensions to be fully physical goes much further than what I've just described. But it is important to know that from source perspective, nothing has gone wrong if you can't see auras. In fact, much has gone right. And now you are simply deciding to change your mind and open your awareness again to what else exists beyond the physical world. Whenever we want something that is not coming to us, we have to consider the possibility that an aspect of us doesn't actually want it to come to us. There's always a positive intention, a subconscious one, hiding behind every negative manifestation. For example, someone might not want to actually see auras because they might fear going crazy or being seen as crazy by the groups they're around. Someone else might be afraid that they wouldn't be able to succeed at a corporate career. Someone else might be afraid that if they see auras, they might start to see scary things too. So before you watch the rest of this video, ask yourself honestly, why might I not want to see auras? What is the subconscious positive intention I have for not seeing them? So you've done all of that. Now let's explore how to see auras. The first step is, let's differentiate between seeing and perceiving. We all perceive extrasensory information in different ways. For example, one person might feel what's in the aura emotionally. The other person might naturally physically feel what's in the aura. Another person might naturally see what's in the aura. Another person might just know what's in the aura without feeling or seeing it. These are the different ways in general that people perceive extrasensory information. Now, we are so focused on seeing auras that we miss the fact that all of these other avenues of perception perceive auras. Why is it that seeing is so important to us? What we find is that when we focus on the area of reception that comes most naturally to us, a spillover effect occurs. With a spillover effect, what I mean is somebody who naturally, emotionally feels what's in the auric field, if they capitalize on that and they get better and better at feeling what's in the auric field, eventually they will have no other option when they want to become more open than for their being to become clairvoyant. In other words, the extrasensory perception spills over into another modality of reception. People who are obsessed with seeing auras often close themselves down to perceiving auras because they're so focused on sight that they ignore the way they already do perceive auras. And we can capitalize on the way we already perceive auras and practice perceiving them in that way more and more. And then we will eventually be able to see auras. Seeing the aura is just one way to perceive the aura. Look for the ways you most naturally perceive energy that exists beyond the normal senses and get even better at that. Work with the ability you already have. Develop that talent even more, and it will spill over. Keep in mind that most people feel the aura long before they see the aura. There are some techniques which will help you to see auras better. It's a good idea to start out with these techniques if you're a beginner, because we can always expand these later and drop the techniques when we no longer need them. But to start with, you're going to control the variables. What you're going to do is to have somebody stand about 6 to 10 feet away from you in front of a solid white wall or a solid black wall. Some people see auras better in front of black. Some people see auras better in front of white. So experiment to see which one is true for you. The key here is that you do not want to try to observe the aura against a backdrop that has any patterns in it. The eye is designed to focus. It is through this focusing that the eye learns to ignore what is in its peripheral vision. Usually, like a camera, whatever you focus on is clear, whereas whatever you don't focus on is blurry. In order to begin to focus on auras, to see auras, we need to become aware of what is out of focus to our eye. To do this, we pick a spot on the person's upper body, like a person's third eye, or a person's Adam apple, or their sternum. I find that focusing on the third eye or the middle of their forehead works best for people learning how to see auras. Practice focusing hard on that one point on their body, and then relaxing your focus with your eye muscles by just repeating "relax" in your head, while consciously letting go of any tension in the muscles behind your eyes. It is much easier for the beginner to see auras when the muscles behind the eye are relaxed. Now, without shifting your focus, without actually moving your eyes, you want to shift your awareness and your attention to what is in the periphery of your vision, to what is not in focus. The scientific theory about why this works is that because of the shape of your eyes, you can see a different spectrum of light with the periphery of your vision than you can in your straight line of vision. The edges of your eyes can see a higher frequency of energy. I think this is a good explanation for why it's easier for the beginner to see auras in this way. But I can assure you that as you practice seeing auras, and as you tune your frequency in to seeing auras, it's not going to matter how you look at something. You will see auras no matter whether you're looking straight at it, or whether you're focusing with the periphery of your vision. Anyway, you will begin to see a static buzz, or a transparent kind of energy, or a foggy kind of cloud begin to show up in the area just around someone's body. It's a bit like a halo. Most often when you begin, this halo will appear to only be about 1/2 inch to 2 inches wide, and it will most likely be white, silverish, or bluish, or clear. What you're actually seeing is the mantle of the aura, is the aura's perimeter. Hues that are close to the blue spectrum and white spectrum are the easiest for the eye to see. Keep in mind that at first the aura will look very transparent, like heat waves on a summer day. Once you see that transparent halo around a person, keep your attention exactly in that place and keep looking at it in exactly that way. Just notice and observe it. At first this might feel tiring to your eyes. This is normal. As you keep looking at it in this way, your frequency will tune into the frequency of the auric field. And like anything else in this universe, what you focus more on, you get more of. So what you'll start to notice is this mantle of the auric field moving outwards. It will appear like somebody's energetic field is expanding. And you might start to see textures or patterns or shapes. And inside that mantle, you might begin to see colors. Specifically, a primary color for the person you're looking at. Some people can see the aura straight away with this technique. Others take a few minutes to see it. Don't get discouraged and stop trying if it doesn't happen immediately. Learning to see auras is like learning to walk again. Turn it into a meditative practice where you are open to observing for as long as it takes. Whatever we resist persists, and this will help you to release enough resistance to not seeing the aura that you will begin to see it. It doesn't mean anything's wrong with you, and it doesn't mean you are any less spiritual if it takes a long time for you to see auras, or in fact if you never see them. You can learn to see your own aura by applying the same technique, except for this time you want to stand so that you're facing a white or a black wall. You want to extend your hand out with your fingers slightly separated, and you want to make your focal point in the center of your palm, the backside of your palm. Now focusing on that, you want to do the same thing where you relax your gaze. You want to, with your mind, focus on the energy that is in between your fingers and around your fingers. Another technique for seeing your own aura is to drag a mirror so that you're in front of a white or a black background. And then you want to do the same thing you did in the first exercise, except for with the reflection in the mirror. So you want to focus on your own third eye in the reflection in the mirror. Soften your gaze and begin to see what's in the periphery, the subtle energetic field that's around your own body as it is against that white wall being reflected in the mirror. Seek to become as healthy as possible and as present with yourself as is humanly possible. The more emotionally and physically and mentally healthy you are, and the more present you are with yourself, the greater your level of peace. The greater your degree of peace, the more you will become like a pond of still water, where you can see the world clearly reflected in it. The distortions will go away, and there will be nothing between you and your perception of others. Most of my own spiritual teachings, and most of the spiritual teachings of other teachers around the world, center on this particular idea: how to develop greater peace and greater health within your own being. Us being able to see auras is nothing more than a party trick unless it is a part of a deeper spiritual practice. You have to raise your frequency to be a match to frequencies that are vibrating at a higher and faster frequency than the physical dimension, and a faster frequency and a higher frequency than the subconscious mind if you're going to see auras and going to have seeing auras mean anything to you. So ask yourself this question: what do I know I need to do to become healthier? The next tip is to let go of positive and negative judgment. Anytime you judge something, negatively or positively, as good or bad, or as a thing, you quantify it. When you quantify something, you restrict it to your expectation of it. You can't see anything beyond it. You've become attached to whatever you're observing, and thus you cannot be objective about it. This judgment is how you learn to ignore the non-physical world in the first place. Practice receiving energy about people and perceiving information about people without being affected by it. If you observe something impartially, you disengage from the physical world, and so you can really see it. If you observe something impartially, you disengage from the physical world, and so not only can you see the physical world clearly, you also become a match to seeing the non-physical world clearly. The next tip is let go of the idea of right or wrong. This goes hand in hand with the last tip, because ultimately judging something as right or wrong is a judgment. But it needed to be its own point, because so often people close down their ability to see auras, because they're so concerned with whether they're right about what they're seeing, especially about whether they're right about what color they're seeing in someone else's aura. According to a person's vibration, they are a match to seeing different things within the auric field. And guess what? They're all right. For example, because of someone's current vibration, they might be more a match to seeing the emotional level of someone's energetic field, and so they would perceive more yellows and more oranges specifically in someone's energetic field. Whereas someone else, who's more closely related to the spiritual aspect of someone's being, might be seeing more blues or purples in someone's energetic field. But both people are right about what they are perceiving. The more objective you become in and of yourself, the better mirror you become for others, and the clearer you become about them. You will then have a much fuller picture of the comprehensive totality of someone's aura. The next tip is that when you're ready to start seeing auras outside of a white or a black background, when you're ready to take this into your day-to-day life, regardless of what pattern or lack of pattern someone is in front of, I want you to go outside at dawn or dusk. And I want you to pick a static tree or a static person to be focused on. Stand about 30 yards away from them. And what I want you to do is to focus on that person, right in the center of their forehead, or if you're using a tree, focus on the top of the tree. And then I want you to take your eyes and literally shift them so that you're looking at the 1 o'clock station in the space around their body. Imagine that that person or that tree is literally standing in front of a clock. You're going to be looking at the space that's at about 1 or 2 o'clock. Then, staring at this 1 o'clock space or area to the side of a person or a tree, without moving your physical eyes, I want you to move your mental attention, move the mind's eye, to focusing back on the person's third eye or on the top of the tree. And instantaneously, you will see the energetic field that is emanating from the person and feeding into the person or tree. Essentially, you are receiving light at a different angle, and because of this, you will be able to perceive different dimensions of energy. Practice this technique for as long as you need, and then begin to practice it no matter what time of day it is, and no matter whether you're inside or outside. Doing this will cause you to become adept at tuning your own frequency to the frequency of auras, and then gradually you will be able to see these energetic fields all the time without needing to do any technique. The more you practice becoming aware of the aura, and the more you practice seeing the aura, the easier and easier it will get to do so. When it comes to seeing auras, the better it gets, the better it gets. Eventually, with enough practice, seeing auras will become a multi-sensory experience, thus expanding your understanding and wisdom of this universe even more. Have a good week.